Well, here goes. Big news. Man, you got to watch the show on Friday because I guess we'll know by then. More Catholic schools are on the chopping block.
The Archdiocese of Philadelphia is expected, as Mike mentioned, to announce more school closings on Friday. So we want to put it in perspective so you can know how many kids here are affected. Right now, the Archdiocese has 49,177 students in 156 elementary schools. 15,172 students in 17 high schools, and 212 students at 4 special education schools. So you can bet a lot of these students, most of these students are wondering right now where they'll go to school next year. Will their school close?
So we're talking, let's just round it up, about 65,000 people involved here. Susan Matthews. Susan started a blog to allow parents and others to sound off about the school closing, and she's with us again.
Good morning.
Also
Good
worked
morning,
for the Catholic Standard and Times. Good to see you again, Susan.
Devastating, isn't it?
It is. It's another blow this year after the clergy sex abuse scandal really had Catholics reeling. This is going to be very, very difficult for a lot of people.
Okay, we mentioned about 65,000 students. Of course, their families involved as well. Out of the 17 or so high schools, what are you hearing? How many might close?
Well, just the rumors that everybody else has been hearing, that it's about 30 to 40 elementary schools and about 4 to 5 high schools.
And so, why?
Well,
is it just not enough kids going to the schools?
It's a fiscal reality, I think. The demographics shifting out to the suburbs. Also, Catholic school has gotten more expensive. There's tuition now. Back when I was a child, there was no tuition in many cases, and that's increased over the years. And that's because there's diminished religious orders. Used to be nuns taught in these schools, and that was, inexpensive labor. Now they have lay teachers.
From the outside looking in, you just said, back when I was growing up or back when I was this, everybody I'm working with, a lot of people who went to Catholic schools, everybody talks about how they're identified by their school and their parish.
Right.
When I was growing up this and when I was growing up that, I think that part of the blow makes it just as bad, just because it's what we've known for so long.
Philadelphia Catholics identify so strongly with their parishes and their elementary schools and their high schools. If you ask somebody from this area where they're from, they're more likely to say their parish name than even a neighborhood name.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I'm
part
a Bonner grad.
Exactly.
I went to Grady.
There's so much pride, and well-deserved pride, and I think that's what makes this so incredibly difficult. But the solutions are going to be debated, and that's why I created the Philly Catholic Post, because I want people to have an arena where they can debate the solution.
What are they saying? What are you hearing from parents?
Parents, it becomes personal. They don't want their school to close. They don't want their memories. My grade school is on the chopping block, and that's also the parish where I was married. I have a lot of memories there. I don't want it to close, but I understand the fiscal reality, and if something isn't done, the whole system could collapse, and no one wants that either.
Susan, what are you talking about here? So this is January the 4th now, so these schools are going to close at the end of the school year, and they won't be open in the fall?
I would imagine.
Well, what are you going to do? Let's say you have a senior going to one of these high schools in the fall. I wish they would have done this earlier.
Well, they had this Blue Ribbon Commission investigating this over the previous year. So this isn't something that Archbishop Chaput came in and said, hey, we're going to do this. This has been being studied for quite a long time.
But we're running out of time.
Yeah, we are. But to let it go any longer would be even worse.
Well, yeah.
I think, the plan is that there will be regional hubs of education, so keeping the presence here. That's not going to satisfy some people. And there's going to be debate, well, why haven't they sold the seminary? Why? And, there's been rumors that the Archbishop will sell the residence on City Line Avenue. Mm-hmm. So there's all sorts of rumors flying. We'll know so much more.
It's because since in the last 10 years, I think the high schools will be on 38% less students, 34% for the elementary schools. So it makes sense.
The numbers.
It's a huge argument for vouchers. This is because what's going to happen is some of these students may not find it economically feasible to stay in the Catholic school system. They're going to flood the public school system.
And then what if they can't get into charter school because they might have missed the deadlines?
Right, and financially burdened already with the Philadelphia public school system, this is just going to create even more of a hassle for non-Catholics. Right, well, and
they can afford
the suburbs, there's just as many issues.
Now, to balance it out from the district's perspective, technically education obviously is the priority. So aren't you making, you could argue, stronger schools then? So if we can consolidate some of these schools and you put the emotion aside, if we can bring these kids together. The only con I could see is maybe larger class sizes.
Well, and if you start selling some of the buildings, maybe you put the money back into lesser schools, but class size goes up.
Right. And then better education as far as increased programming in those particular schools. So maybe better language classes. You know, that's what they're looking at. They looked at not just closing the schools, but how can we make them better?
You know, it's about half of all Pennsylvanians say they're Catholics or something, but we're dwindling in numbers. Do you think the sex abuse scandal has any effect on this?
You know, I think
people going away from the church so you don't throw money into the till anymore?
I do think there has been that impact. I know a few people, just personally, who decided not to send their kids to Catholic school anymore because of that issue. I don't think that's the main issue, though. I do think it's a fiscal reason.
Like you said, back when I was going to Catholic school, too, it was free, or maybe $50.
Right.
It's now, in many places, $6,000 a year.
Right, and these schools cost millions to run, millions.
Good to see you.
It's
See
great
what
to be
happens.
here.
I'm sure we'll be talking again.
I hope so.
How come the list hasn't leaked out already?
Oh, I think it will between the meeting on Friday morning and the press conference on Friday afternoon.
We'll know, I bet, by the time our show's over on Friday morning.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
6:22. Apple.